Pulling up the notes. Checking to make sure. Got it. Corley Moore, Firehouse Vigilance, Weekly Scrap, number 168. Sean Duffy is an 18-year student of the craft. He's the co-founder of Build Your Culture, founder of the Great Lakes Hot Fire Conference, a co-host for Make Do Suburban Firemen podcast and the Unlock Your Culture webcast. He has degrees. He has the certs. He has instructed at various local, state, national, and international events, as well as having published work in multiple trade magazines. He remains an active Fools member and enjoys passing on his knowledge gained from his mentors, as well as all his real-world experiences in an effort to leave the fire service better than he found it. It is my pleasure to have my bromate, my brother from another mother, my friend Sean Duffy, on as the guest for Weekly Scrap number 168.
Oh man, Corley, I think it's been a long time since we did one of these.
Dude, I went back to look at the topics we talked about last time, and it was 2 years ago almost. You were like OG.
And a lot has happened in 2 years, man. We keep finding ourselves in the same places. You know,
it is.
So, it's been a good time.
No, I'm excited, man. I really am. Is there anything I missed in the intro? Anything you would like to add?
No, I think that's it, man. I don't really like to brag on myself too much and stuff like that. So I write that because I have to. So that's what everybody wants. Other than that, man, I just love the fire department, and we'll just keep rolling with it, man. Leaving it better than I found it. That's all we can do, you know.
Dude, I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm gonna center you up. Hold on one second. This is housekeeping. There you go. It's all me, not you. All right, framed you up better. I like it.
Oh, there you go.
What's up? Okay, here we go. Kyle Sanchez says, let's go. Joey Hayes said, solid. Kevin Polk, yes, let's go. Sean is top tier. BJ Breacher says, what's up, Duffy? Looking forward to seeing you again at the Great Lakes Hot. Jacob Johnson, my dude, my family. Jeremy Sanders, I'm losing there. So, Jeremy Sanders, get it, Sean. School is up. Chief Hullman says, love that guy. Oh, I lost it again because it's scrolling. Love that guy. Great person and professional. You have Chief fooled. It's a joke. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah.
There, you get the idea. It's still sliding by, man. Awesome, man. Awesome. Okay, let me do the, where did I put my notes? They're hiding from me. Be a tragedy if I closed it. Everybody, get your questions ready for Sean and myself. This scrap is going to be awesome. I'm super excited. The Vigilantes is live. I always poke it and hype it at the beginning of the show. If you want to be a part of the Vigilantes, go subscribe at firehousevigilance.com. We have a forum coming up this Wednesday, and it's going to be awesome. This episode of the scrap is brought to you by Key Hose. Check them out on Facebook, The Hose Experts. Fire Maul Tools, innovative solutions. Home to the Fire Wrap, Grip Kit, the Fire Maul, the Mauler, the Reaper, new TSR Halligan Bar. Man, they got some of the coolest names for tools, period. That's all I can say, man. That's awesome. It's firefighter owned and operated. Fire Maul Tools is producing the most purpose-driven tools and equipment on the fire ground. They are fighting hard for made in the USA and want to know, where is your tool made? Go to firemaul.com today. Use the promo code SCRAP to save. Mitch is awesome. So, yeah, support him 100%. Then we got affordable drill towers. My man, Steve. The only thing you can't do on an affordable drill tower is live fire. The affordable drill tower, you can rappel, stretch hose lines, go through the stairs, go through the floor, do window bailouts, cut holes in the roof props, use the apartment balconies, pump to the FDC, flow water from the sprinkler system. Call Steve, 844-55-TOWER, or drop an email to info@affordabledrilltowers.com. And finally, one of my favorite people on this planet, Chief Riley, the First Line Fire Services Training LLC, dedicated to pursuing excellence in our craft. You can find him on Facebook at First Line Fire Service Training LLC. My man, Dennis Riley, I can't say enough about him. He has been around the block, and he is still a shark out there swimming, doing shark things. So, there we go. Housekeeping done. Sean Duffy, are you ready to talk about, I don't know, what do you want to start with?
Oh, man. Here, I'm going to talk about, everybody knows that search is my thing. I love search, but I kind of want to talk about how hard we're hitting it lately and making sure that we're not losing people in that process.
White noise?
Yeah, so it's one of those things like when I really got into search and rescue, the reason that drove me to it is because of failures of my own, and things that like I wasn't taught that I had to find out the hard way. And I'm sitting there thinking, there has to be more to this, and nobody can really give me answers. And so I started doing some research. I started taking a lot of classes from people like far better than me. And what I noticed is that generally when you take a class like a search program, you're at the disposal of that and maybe where they work with their staffing, experience, knowledge base, whatever it may be. And I just kind of have seen over the years where everybody wants to teach search, which is great. And I love to see that. And it definitely needs to happen. But we lose sight of the message of just because we are showing you something doesn't necessarily mean that you're able to do it, right? So such as like if I teach like a split search drill, if they don't do that in their organization, it's great to know, and they can go back and they could kind of try and change their search culture with what they've learned. But there's a lot that goes into it. Like once we get to the fire, it doesn't matter what I know, right? Like if I'm the only person that's taken search training, and I can tripod and I can move fast and do all these great things, but nobody else on my crew is able to do it, I've got to like scale things down, right? Because I just can't leave everyone behind, right? So I think that kind of gets missed with a lot of our drills. We emphasis on speed and efficiency, which are all good things, but it's important that we tell everybody like, in order to really truly operate effectively the way that we want, this is a training that all of us have to work at, right? And we all have to bring each other up to that level. Otherwise, I mean, you just got people randomly doing shit, and it just becomes more chaotic than anything else. So that's what I'm experiencing anyway. I just felt as someone who teaches that it's worth bringing up that if you are teaching search, to make sure that you leave, your students leave and they're set up for success, and you don't just magically think that they're going to go to a fire and all is going to be the way it was in that burn building or house that you train in or whatever it is, because that's not reality, right? So we have to train ourselves to that reality of what we're going to face when we go back to work.
Nice, brother. Nice. There's so many comments coming, and they're already coming in from Kyle Romagus, who is always there to field the questions and look for the best ones. Chris Kent said, we have totally changed our minds in Circleville, Ohio for the better. Love it. You get 1 day to teach search to new recruits. What are your main points or skills? Okay, that's good stuff coming. Good stuff coming. Right here from Garrett Rose. You get 1 day to teach search to new recruits. What are your main points or skills you want to hit on?
Oh man, that's such a great question. Because often, a host department or something like that, or we might be at a conference somewhere and we get 8 hours, which is really not that much, right? So I would say the biggest things that I want to teach is one, mindset. Like, why are we doing the things that we're doing? Because anything we do has to have purpose and it has to make sense. And then two, communication. Communication is huge because if you're not communicating with the people inside that building with you and you're just like freelancing, doing a bunch of stuff, it doesn't make any sense, right? And on that line of communication, I see this so often where it's like, hey, I got a window, I got a door, I got a bed, I got this. Like, we just cut that shit right out. Like, it doesn't need to be said. If you're staying oriented and you're using your hands like you should have a general idea of what kind of room you're in. If you come across a window or a door, like, note it mentally, because every time we say things that don't need to be said, it slows everything down, right? So, Corley, if you and I are in a building and you're like, hey, I got a bed, I got a door, I got a thing, you just did like rapid fire 3 or 4 different things, and I'm still trying to process. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to ask you, like, what did you say? Right. And in that process, now we're just talking and nobody's searching. So communication's number one. And then like somebody is in charge of that search effort. Like, so what I teach personally, right, wrong, or indifferent, is the first person through the door who calls a shot, like, hey, we're going left, we're going right, or whatever it is that you're doing, that person needs to be in charge of the search, right? They're going to call the shots and do all that other stuff. Like, hey, I got a hallway here, you go left, I'll go right, or I got another room, whatever that communication is. make sure that everyone's on the same page.
Right on.
You and me can have a conversation and we can understand what we're talking about. But if everybody in that crew has different terminology of what needs to happen and we don't really use the same terms, nothing's happening, right? So I kind of beat the death communication, but in that same time, I think technique goes a long way, right? Understanding that there is a time when we do have to slow it down and change from like that tripod stance to more of a slower stance. Like if we're in hoarding conditions or things like that, or maybe a child's bedroom, often we teach search drills like, boom, anyone's way to make them slow down, where their conditions aren't made, if you're doing live fire, in a way to where it pushes them down further, right? Conditions are changing, heat's dropping down on you, so you got to kind of adjust. So I would say get used to adjusting your search patterns accordingly, right? You might have to adjust your tripod from more of like an upright to like I'm down lower because conditions are dictating that, or like whatever's in my way, I just can't move through it as efficiently as I normally would. And then reality. The scenarios you give somebody, make sure they're real. Like any instructor can set up a scenario and like trick the students into thinking they succeeded, right? Because I'm in charge of the scenario. So, we'll kind of make it however we want. What I found into, especially as a student, is some of the scenarios that we give, especially in live fire trainings, are not really realistic. And we lose sight of the whole reason why we're doing this in the first place. So if you're going to give a scenario and you're going to host search training, make sure, again, it's purposeful and it's based off of reality, not just some bullshit you made up on your way to work one day and said, yeah, it'd be funny to get everybody crazy, There's a time to add stress, but like this is a like crawl, walk, run approach to things, bringing everybody up to the same page. And in that same scenario that you have, you can increase difficulty as you go. So don't just like throw something at everybody all at once, because if their skill set isn't there, they're not going to be able to finish that scenario. They're just more like frazzled than anything else because they don't understand why they're doing the things they're doing and all that other stuff. So those would be my biggest things. If you had like one day to hit on those, give them the core principles, and then as time goes, you can expand further from there.
Gotcha. Good answer. Very good answer. Very good question. Coming at you. You ready for more audience questions? They're coming,
bring them on.
They're coming rapid fire.
Do it.
Scott Hoke Jr. says, my department is very young, 67% less than 2 years of experience, and because of such, we have become less aggressive due to lack of experience. What tips do you have for getting back to aggressive but educated search and attack tactics, growing our rookies into experienced firemen?
Well, again, another like there's so much to unpack there, right?
Uh-oh. Sean?
So I would say, you there?
Yeah, you're freezing up, I think. Is it just one side, or let me know? Internet looks good here. We got not getting any packet loss.
Is everything good now?
You're freeze framing. Freeze frame. Talk to me, Goose. It looks like you're moving.
How's that?
Yeah.
All right, you can hear me?
I can hear you. You look good. You're not freezing.
Okay. I don't know what the deal is with that. That's kind of weird. If that happens again, let me know.
Okay.
So the thing about that, like, it's like I said, there's so much to unpack there, right?
Right.
The biggest thing I would say is, as firefighters, especially in this realm of search, like when you're passionate about something, you tend to kind of like really, really want to promote it. And you want people to be as passionate as you are, which is great. But if you're going to get buy-in, especially from people that are less experienced than you, you've got to start from the beginning and give them small little bits and then expand on those little bits of, again, why, right? So a good thing is like firefighter rescue survey. It surprises me how many people don't know that exists. So when you're talking about a specific tactic like split search, and you say, hey, 37% of our rescues were successful by doing this type of search, you've shown them the proof that it works. Now you've got to show them like how to do this, when to do this, and like why overall, so that they get this picture. So when you get to the fire, you say, hey, we're going to split search, and boom, they know exactly what that means. So in an organization where you're trying to change that culture and be aggressive, that goes back to what I was saying in the beginning. Be careful, because you don't want to get aggressive too quick, right? It's easy to take a training, right, and learn a bunch of cool stuff, but remember that that's a Connex box or like a concrete burn building, and it's very controlled. A real fire is very different, right? So if you're teaching these things and you're advocating for that aggressive behavior, but you haven't really slowly implemented that into every fire you go to, you're going to get someone hurt, or worse, they might get killed. So make sure that you start in the firehouse, you do those drills, you give them the information, and you table talk it at the table, break this down, research line of duty deaths. That's important too.
Yes.
Like what happened there, what went wrong, have a game plan. Like all this goes into it. It's not just a matter of, hey, we're going to go practice in the apparatus bay for 3 hours and then we're going to do this on a fire later, right? If those people in your organization haven't even been to a fire yet, they it doesn't matter what they do or how well they do in the apparatus bay. I guarantee you at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, when that fire is real and it's in their face, they're not thinking about the apparatus bay, because they're like, oh shit, this is happening right now. So train them accordingly. But then when you're in that fire moment, like Justin just talked about this on the search culture page, the best place to teach search is in a fire. And I'm not saying like release the hounds and let them go. What I'm saying is a fire, right? If you have to keep those people closer to you because they're less experienced, that's fine. You can talk about stuff limited in fires, and then afterwards really like dissect that. And then the next day go out there and mimic that as close as possible and show them why this makes sense, why this made us successful or not successful, right? So I don't know if that answers the question, but that would be my recommendation is first, like laying a foundation of what makes a successful search and how we can still be aggressive without being reckless.
I love it, dude. Great answers. And you're breaking the questions down as well. Even and some of them are going to be redundant, but I'll let you hit them from different angles. So I'll keep throwing at you. Nathan Pips wants to know, how do we break the linear search culture that is developed through the curriculum in the fire academies?
Oh man, that's the battle we all have, right? I mean, that's everybody. The thing that I hate to hear, and it's not because I personally hate it, it's just because it's common, right, in our fire services. Well, that's not what IFSTA teaches. I'll make something perfectly clear right now for everybody. If this pisses you off, great, awesome. You're more than free to your own opinion. IFSTA is a for-profit publishing company, like, period. Okay. Often the people that are putting into that book probably don't have very much experiences, or the experiences they do have, like the fire service has well past them, right? Like the things we do and the fires we see is way more advanced than maybe when they were doing stuff. So it's important not to put all of your emphasis on a textbook that is designed to give us some sort of like, I don't know, standardization, because it doesn't exist right now. Like the fire service is weird, right? I can go to McDonald's, order number 2, and every fucker knows what that means, right? It doesn't matter what McDonald's I go to. Everyone's going to know what that means. I go to a fire academy and I say VES and people lose their damn minds. They're like, whoa. And, some people might not even know what that like technique is. And so what I'm saying is, for those people that kind of like want to naysay and like pull back on things, is be patient, right? You don't know what you don't know. And it may not be their fault, right? You got to understand that we're in a time in the fire service right now where there's a lot of information that people didn't have before. And there's a lot of younger firefighters and older firefighters too that are really fired up about the job. So you come into the firehouse and be like, we're doing it wrong and this is how we should do it. That's not winning any battles.
Right.
First, understand why they feel the way they do. That's your first step. Like, okay, like we can have a conversation as adults, right? Like we don't have to agree, but I want to understand where you're coming from first before I just like vomit my views on you. So ask them, okay, well, in your experiences, How have you searched? Has that been successful for you or whatever? Well, in my experiences, it's the way I was taught how to search. And one of my favorite drills to run is like a competition. Hey, we're gonna set up this search drill, and you're gonna search your way, and I'm gonna search my way, and we're gonna see who gets to the victim and removes them quicker. Right? There's no right or wrong. There's no tricks here. I just want to see. And if I'm wrong, I'll own that.
Right.
Like if you beat me, great, because I kind of want you to. I want you to prove me wrong, because now we could say like, okay, well, now we're like I was taught this way and you were taught that way. Obviously, this works for you, and this way works for me, and we kind of like meet somewhere in the middle and start talking this out. There's no magic bullet. I wish I could give people one, but here's the reality. Sometimes like you will fight a losing battle. It is what it is. People are stuck in their own ways. They're stubborn. They don't want to change. And they're not going to listen to anything that anybody has to say. And they're just going to do it the way that they've been doing it the whole time. Again, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's that person. So if that's what you're facing, sometimes let them do there and focus where you can do your greatest good. Right? Your greatest good might be like the new recruits coming in, or the senior fireman who wants to learn this information, who maybe has never been able to go to training or do those things that you are able to go to because they have a family and other obligations, and maybe you don't. So it goes back to information sharing this information, show it to them. Like YouTube is a great thing, and I hate saying that because I hate like, oh, I saw this thing on YouTube, we should try
Right.
it. You miss a lot of context there.
Right, sure.
But like there's a lot of like helmet camera footage, there's a lot of fire scene footage like you could get all over the country and like sit there and dissect stuff, right? And I think one of the biggest things with all of that is find firefighters who are out there doing it and get their stories, right? Get their stories, both success and failure. Figure out why they do the things they've done, right? And ask how they changed or why they changed to the way they're doing it now, and bring that with you.
Nice.
Say, okay, well, I just talked to this firefighter in New York City, right? And they don't search the way we do, but here's what he did tell me, or here's what they told me, right? And that makes them successful. So by reaching out to other firefighters and finding their story and talking about taxes and stuff like that, you very well might meet somewhere in the middle and find something, a whole new technique that works better for you and your organization than anything me or somebody else can say, in a training that you're going to go back to and try and implement. So, again, that's just my view. That's what I would do, but I don't have a magic bullet for that answer, unfortunately.
They say Duffy is going to church tonight. Yes, he's already on a roll, man. This is early. We're just getting going.
It's early, yeah.
All right. Stephen McCaffrey says, "Can you speak on stacking search helping a bit with the difficult? Can you speak on stacking search helping a bit with the difficult hose layer for smaller departments?"
So, again, staffing. I hate to say that, but that drives a lot of what we do, why we do, and how we do things. Stacking crews. So for anybody who doesn't understand what stacking is, because again, that's terminology some people are not familiar with. If I have an attack crew and I have a search crew, we're going to stack them, forcing the door while the engine or while the attack crew gets ready, or maybe the attack crew is already made and we're either going to make the decision to send the search in front of attack or send attack in and then search behind up to whatever it is that you deem necessary, right? So for me, I think in smaller departments, I worked in small agencies. Like for a long time, I was on a 2-man engine, which, my next engine coming was probably 10 minutes away. It's a long time to be there by yourself trying to figure stuff out. If that's not your reality and you have a little bit closer time, what is your priority? Like for me, I'm going to tell you that like search is always my priority, whether I show up on an engine or a ladder or whatever it is that I'm showing up on, or however many people I have. Search is my priority. That's the number one mission of the fire service is life, right? Always has been, always will be, never going to change. But how do we do that, right? And we're bound by like 2 in, 2 out and all that other shit people like to throw out there, or risk a lot, save a lot, whatever. Point being is when you're stacking crews, it has to be organized. So you got 4 people, let's say, sitting there ready to go. We can't just all rush in at the same time. Like that's mass chaos, and like that goes back to having a plan. So like when we teach search drills and stacking crews, first we need to figure out like, hey, what's more important right now? Removing the environment from the victim, so like fire attack, or removing the victim from the environment, search. So I'm either going to go ahead of you and go target those bedrooms where I know they're at, and then you're going to come behind me and put the line between the fire and us, buying us time. Or, hey, this fire is like really getting it good. I need you to go in there and start like changing conditions for us so that, again, we buy time. So when you teach that, you have to look at like what you have staffing wise, what you have coming to you next, how long that's at. And then again, back to capabilities. What are the capabilities of your crew? If you have like a badass engine crew that goes in there and they're on the nozzle and they're freaking flowing and going and they're doing great shit, awesome. If you have a slower search company that's in that like scenario, probably not going to be too bad. But if you have like a sluggish engine company that's making the push and you have a badass like search crew that's like hauling ass, like they can put themselves in a bad situation very relying on you to get stuff done. So make sure like when you're doing those things that you put scenarios in place that mimic what you're going to face.
Nice.
You know, if I show up with a 2-man engine and I know 10 minutes later is when my next 2 guys are going there, I have to make a scenario that's going to last with our objectives for 10 minutes before I get any help. I can't just show up with 6 people and say, okay, you're doing this, and you're doing this. Expect those guys to run a call later that day and perform that same way, because that's not happening.
Right.
So in the realm of stacking crews, I would say what's more important to you? Having the search crew force the door and go in and get after it, or, you know, like having the engine company go in first and get after it, and then them supporting the search effort, because that's really what happens on the fire ground, right?
Right on.
Everything supports the search.
No,
whether it be fire attack and ventilation. Like search is our mission, and everything else is supporting that. So that would be my suggestion.
Here's a clarification on the question. Kyle came in and said Stephen was referring to stacking the attack and search crew on the hose line to move the line to the fire quicker and easier for a difficult push or long distance stretch.
Oh yeah, dude. You know what? I'm totally fine with that. Like if that's what you have to do, like let's not lose sight of the importance of getting that hand line to the fire. Like that's super important. That's going to make everything a lot easier for everybody, including our victims. So if you have to stack crews like that and like feed line, then I would say, how many people does it take to move that line? Right? You got a nozzleman, you got the backup guy, and then you got maybe somebody managing like pinch points, right? So what is that 4th person doing? Right? Maybe they're feeding hose or whatever it is that they're doing. But you generally have somebody that's able to break off a little bit during all of that and search the immediate areas around them. And I'm not saying dedicate like, hey, I got a room over here, I'm just going to go in here and search this.
Just bail on everything else, right?
Right. What I'm saying is, as you're moving line through a structure, you are able, at least one person, able to clear a certain area, you know, whether it be left, right, or in front of you, whatever that is, and then pick up line and move it again and then do the same thing. Once that line is in place, how many people do you need to fight the fire? 1, right? 1 nozzleman. So that means everything behind, now you have 3 to 4 people, or 3 in this case, right? Providing that we have two persons per engine. You have 3 people that can start clearing all that space behind you, you know. That is very beneficial. Everything's based off time, right? Like we have to understand time doesn't belong to us, it belongs to our civilians. So time it takes us to stretch line, put water on the fire, time it takes us to mask up, get in, do searches, force doors, ventilate, like all of this stuff that we need to do is very time sensitive. So the quicker we can get that stuff done and help each other out in that process, I think the more successful we're going to be.
Love it, man. I'm looking at the questions. Christopher Snow, a man down in Texas, says, how do you help educate the person fulfilling IC that we can't just take the homeowner's words of everyone is out for face value and not have to execute a search still?
Oh, man, again, these are somewhat loaded questions. But these are my views, okay? Like that, I have to like put that out there.
Yes, absolutely.
This is what I feel passionately about. This is how I like to see things done, and I know we're capable of doing it. for some reason, people take more of like a safety-minded approach and they just say, no, we can't do it, and throw their hands up without even training on how to do this. So going back to the question, everyone's out. You can scour the internet almost daily and find articles where people say everyone's out, and then later in the fire, they find out that everyone wasn't out. And the analogy that I use when we teach search is like, I've got 2 young daughters, right? One's 10 and one's 6. When they have friends over, I'll be truly honest. Like, I know their friends are here, but when my house is on fire, their friends are on the last thing on my mind. I'll be honest. Like, I wake up to smoke detectors going off and flames and smoke in my house. The first thing is, where the fuck are my kids? And I'm going to snatch my kids and I'll make sure that my family's out. And then I'll probably think like, oh shit, we had, Emily and Rebecca spending the night. They're in there. So think about that. In a moment of time where like all the worst parts of the Bible are happening all around you, like shit's burning, like things are just going nuts. You're frantic, you're crazy. You're not thinking logically. So to tell firefighters when they show up, yeah, everyone's out, that's fine. And then we show up and we do what? We repeat that on the radio. Or we read notes and we repeat that to the crew inside the cab. Like, everyone's out, like whatever. Like, that means absolutely shit. Nothing, right? Because we haven't even gone in there yet to verify that for ourselves. And that's the whole reason we're showing up. Like, if we never put water on fire, the building would go out eventually. But if we don't show up and people are trapped, people die. Like, that's just the reality, right? So, again, search being our priority, like, that's what we're there for. I don't care if it's one room and you're telling me no one's out. If I can get in that room and I can occupy that space with my bunker gear on and my training and all that stuff that we have, I'm doing it. Because the reality is, like, most people, even civilians that have come out of the house, they're outside now. I guarantee you not a single one of those searched the entire house before leaving. Guarantee it. Cops, definitely not, right? Most of the time, we treat them for smoke inhalation when we show up because what? They don't have the training we do. They don't have the equipment we do. They don't have any of that stuff. So then you take into the fact that we live in a crazy world. People will try and hide a lot of things. So you have a domestic going on, and that's not uncommon. I know people like to type on the internet with their fingers who probably never go to fires. Like, oh, that's not possible, the hypothetical. No, it is possible. And it happens all the time where there's a domestic dispute and they light the house on fire because they're trying to cover a crime or whatever it is they're trying to cover. And then I'm outside and I say, nobody's in there. And you take my word for it. Meanwhile, there's mom and 2 kids tied up in a fucking bathtub, right? And we never searched. And then we just go, oh, well, they were probably dead before we got there. That's bullshit. Like, I don't care what anybody wants to say about it. Our job as the fire department is to show up, support life, and put the fucking fire out. End of discussion. And if you don't want to do that and you want to believe like reports from other people that everyone's out and that's good enough for you, please go scoop ice cream, because I don't want that on my conscience, right? And I don't want to work with somebody who's able to be cool with playing God and make those decisions for other people either.
There's your answer. Nothing but the best questions coming at you, brother.
Oh, man. Yeah, well, sorry,
Here's a little less charged question. When you go in, this one comes from Jonathan Fitzgerald. When you go in the front door for search, do you go left or right depending on how the front door swings? Like swings towards the bedrooms, kind of like Clackamas talks about in their search and rescue PDF. Anything you can add to this? Any tidbits, nuggets type deal?
So I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't put too much stock into that because it's not always correct. You go into buildings just doing like walk-arounds or medical calls or whatever, and you find doors that are facing the wrong way all the time. You're like, that's weird. So I try and get good. And for me now, like anybody who knows me knows that the challenge for me right now is building construction in my area because it's very new to me. I used to live in Florida. Now I live in Michigan. So I'm dealing with a lot of things that I didn't used to deal with. So it's opened my eyes to a lot, right? Florida, large open floor plans, pretty common. Like, okay, garage is over here. Well, nobody's going through their garage to get to their bedroom, right? So most of the rooms are on the opposite side of the house. Generally, you go through the garage, park your car, and you wind up in like the kitchen and then like the living room, and then Maybe there's a master on one side of the house and all the other bedrooms are on the other. It's not like that where I work, unfortunately, right? We have a lot of different style frat houses, things like that. So, what I would say is know the building construction of where you work. Your first due, second due, third due, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe your entire county, city, township, whatever you work. Know how those buildings are set up, and also take into account that people are going to alter those buildings, right? Handicapped people probably take doors off so they can move through very easily instead of having to open doors and all that stuff. Illegal alterations happen all the time, so use it as a tool, as a general knowledge base, but don't put all your eggs in that basket. What I would do is get used to what does it look like consistently where I'm stationed, right? Like for me, if I walk into a frat house, I know what I can pretty much expect. 3-4 floors, single room occupancies, you make each floor, there's 7 to 10 rooms on each side, there's all the way up in the top in that attic space where knee walls are and stuff are generally converted into apartment styles. There's small things that you can start picking up just by walking through these buildings that are going to help you a long way. Not just with search, but for attack as well. Where we're going to put our line, what's the best way to get to the fire and everything like that. So that would be what I add. Chimneys, people like to say, hey, look at the roof where the chimney is, and opposite side of that there might be stairs. That's not true where I live. Some houses are like that, majority are not. So if you're using that to base your like understanding of where the stairs are in this house, you're probably gonna fail. So most likely, like, I don't live in the city I work in. I live like 45 minutes away. So the city that I live in, most residences, like on the side of the house, have an entry door. And that has a stairwell that goes down and the stairwell that goes to the right and up to the upstairs. Or you have the basement and the stairs to the bungalow, same side, just opposite. So if you're coming in the side door, you're going down the basement, you have to go through a kitchen and then a living room and then up into the second floor. So knowing those little like quirks of your buildings are going to take you a long way.
I like it. He said, but if you have the set way of which you take, it still gives you a better chance than just 50-50 though, right? And yeah, the ghetto is all kinds of things. So yes. I guess if you're down to just that being your only indicator, I don't see an issue with it if it's all you got left.
No, I mean, if it's all you got, I mean, I'll tell you, like, again, being honest, if you tell me left-hand search or right-hand search, traditionally, I found more success going to the right. That's just me, right? No, your experiences might say that your success is to the left. So you have to be able to use those experiences you have to kind of guide your judgment. If that's all you got, like, go with it. It's better than just like throwing a dart at the wall and hoping shit works out. Like I said, anything could be considered a guideline, right? I don't think there's any definite answer for majority of what we do. And I know a lot of people hate like conditions dependent, but when I say conditions dependent, what I'm telling people is I'm not saying that there's always or never that we're going to do this. I'm going to say that, like, in this case, I have a door that swings to the left, and traditionally bedrooms are to the left, and all of this shit is on fire. I'm going to the left. Like, that's where I'm going, So I hope that kind of clarifies that question.
No, absolutely. And nothing, and you said it, nothing beats knowing your district and take advantage of the EMS calls, because look at the way the door swings when you go on that diabetic call, when you go on that lift assist, and see if it's true in your district or in that neighborhood, because right. we all know those neighborhoods where there's only 5 or 6 floor plans throughout the entire thing.
Yeah, those cookie cutter neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you get inside one, you've been inside like, all of them basically.
Yeah. So real quick, Corley.
Hit it.
I get off on tangents like nobody else. Like, I'll fucking talk all day. So if there's something to clarify, please like stop me so that I can address that right there.
No, 100%. Sometimes it's going by too fast, and I rely on Kyle to keep throwing clarifications at me, because sometimes it's just a lot to keep up with.
Oh, yeah, I gotcha.
Especially when you get on a tear, the comments get on a tear, and then it's just this feeding frenzy, and it's good times. I I don't know if there's enough detail in this question, but it comes from Brian Taylor II. He says, how can we be more effective with a 3-man engine company if we are first due to a residential fire and have the need to perform VES? So I don't know what more effective means, but I'm throwing the question at you, see which way you want to go with it.
All right. Again, I don't want to tell anybody, like, my objective when I talk about search or even when I teach search is not to change anybody's policies or any of that stuff. That's not what I'm after. Like, I'm more for, like, let's stem conversation, right? Let's figure out, like, is there something we can do to better what we're doing, right? Can we be better? And if so, how is that? So I would say in this case, I know a lot of departments don't advocate for their engineer to leave the pump, but with, like, modern advancements in our pumps and stuff, like, I'm going to go on a limb and say that it's probably okay, right? Like that pump's not going to blow up and all that shit when you're not there. Like, you can leave to help assist. And so what do I mean by that? Okay. We're getting out, we're doing our 360. So we're doing a 360 for fire. We're doing a 360 for search, right? Because we do that too. We don't just look at the fire and just keep going.
Hopefully.
Right. I'm finding out, like, what's the best way to enter. I'm trying to gather reports if anyone's there, like, hey, what's the last known location? How old are they? What's their name? Like, whatever questions I need to ask. Usually the officer is getting that information. And what am I doing as a firefighter? Well, that's situational dependent. Am I showing up on a truck company or am I showing up on an engine, right? If I'm showing up on a truck company and I'm not stretching line, then I pretty safe to assume that I'm probably going to start throwing ladders or forcing doors or something of that nature, right? So let's say I need to force entry. I'm forcing doors. I'm coming up and I'm forcing doors, doing this 360, and I'm just kind of opening up to make entry. Why can my driver not throw ladders? Especially if we know we're doing a VES. Hey, man, like, I got other shit to carry, right? I got to prep for things. Maybe I'm doing 2 ladders. Right? Like, we're not just throwing 1, we're doing 2 because 2 ladders help with that removal. And this is where we're targeting. Right here, right now, this is our VES. I can grab a ladder. You can grab a ladder. We can just throw these things up and I can get to work, right? You cut the workload in half. It's more efficient, timely manner. So I'd say with a 3-man crew, which, is what I operate on all of our apparatus, minus the ambulance, those have 2, but they're usually probably going to be given some other assignment, whether it be linking up with tower, ladder, or engine, or maybe RIT, whatever it is they're given. So 3, I want my driver engineer to be working.
Absolutely.
Engineer. If I'm not assisting my driver, like if I'm not on the tower and I'm not assisting my driver with setting up that tower first and then going to do stuff and we're showing up and we're getting right to it, man, I've got a 24-foot, I've got a 16-foot, I've got a 14-foot, I've got ladders for days. Like, let's use them, and, like, get me started on mine and then start finding egress. Because guess what? Just because I enter that window doesn't mean I'm coming out that window, right? It doesn't mean that. So if we push beyond or whatever, I'm going to come out another way. It may be a window, but I want a ladder there, or 2 if possible, right? So I would say train in that way of doing multiple tasks together. There's a lot going on there, and we got to break that shit down. So, man, three's tough. It's what we all work with. Hopefully, you can have like 4 one day, but no, man, like, whether that driver engineer is stretching line to help put, like, water on the fire while you're getting ready, like, I might have fire just starting to roll out of a room that I'm getting ready to VES, and it's not, like, flashed over yet. Let's, like, flow some water. So that's the perfect position for my driver engineer. Hey, man, pull that line, run back, charge that sucker. While I'm getting up this ladder, I want you to flow water in that window. And that's saying that it's a second floor VES, right?
Sure.
Like, if it's first floor, man, then there's no ladder to worry about, and it's same thing, right? Stretch that line, flow that water, support me getting ready to dive in and make a search happen. And for anybody who hasn't seen Chief Stone's video on VES, that's exactly what happened, and they pulled that lady out alive. So that's the way we need to be training, in my view.
Right. No, that's why they ask. Daniel Drury's got a great question here. I love it. I want to see what you say. Sean, what are your thoughts on putting effort towards ventilation prior to search in order to bring clean air for victims and possibly more visible search to decrease search time? Had someone asked me this and would like your thoughts.
Well,
Situationally dependent.
no, I'm not going to say that. Like I said, I'm going to say, like, what kind of ventilation are we talking about? Are we talking about horizontal or vertical? Because that changes a lot of things too, right? Um, Opening up a building is a skill, right? Knowing, like, are we above the fire? Are we in this area? Like, once we start making holes or taking glass or doing however we're ventilating this building, like, we cannot take that shit back. It's done. Like, we're committed. So I would be very sure, like, you better be damn sure that where you're cutting this vent hole on the roof or where you're breaking this window to horizontally vent, um, is not going to change conditions so drastically before you have a chance to enter that building, right? Um, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be an expert on vertical ventilation because I'm not. What I would say is, if you ask me, do I need to vertically vent first or get my ass in the building to search? I'm going to always choose get my ass in the building and search. Unless it's like I know that I have another crew coming like right behind me that can shoot right in there, then yeah, we might, well, not me because I'm not an officer, but we might think maybe we take the roof and vertically vent this real quick and get that lift that we need. So in the 10 seconds, 15 seconds it takes for them to pull the air brake and get to this front door, they have that lift of heat, that visibility they need. I don't know. I don't have a definitive answer. I would say again that goes back to experience, right? How many fires have you been on where you vertically vented that you can feel comfortable doing that technique? Especially ahead of any water or before you send anybody to the building, right? There's things that you need to learn, myself included, prior to just like throwing tactics out there and saying, well, somebody told me this works, so let's try it. Like, that's not the time, right? Now, if you're on a fire ground where that happens to happen and you learn that technique and you see the benefits of it, then you have a little bit more clout there, right? To kind of say we're doing this. So unfortunately, I don't know if I have an answer for that because I've never been put in that situation. I could just like hypothetically speak of what is more important at that moment. Like, if we're having like pressurized smoke pushing out, like, we need to do two things before we enter that building. We need to ventilate and we need to cool it with water before we
Yeah.
even dance in. So I guess that would be a situation where, yeah, like, get to the roof, cut a hole or pop a window, whatever it is that you need to do, and start cooling that space and getting shit out. If that's what's going to support the search and make it safer for us to enter, it's a possibility.
Man, no, it's a great. I'd have to be there in the like looking at the house and seeing where the smoke is at and what it's doing to kind of. There are situations where sticking a fan in the door and with a good exhaust, especially like a room and contents fill in the house, where you can push all the products of combustion out, and make it to where you can just walk in. But you have to be there and see it. It's not a one size fits all. And
Yeah,
as a general rule, air without water means rapid increase in fire conditions very soon. And so,
absolutely. Yeah.
um,
Oh, sure.
yeah, Daniel said it was a horizontal ventilation with a line inside already is the situation that was brought to me. So,
Okay.
so
So if crews are already inside, which means they probably put water on the fire. Do I understand that correctly?
well, I'm not sure if there's water. He didn't put that in there specifically, but that definitely changes things.
So there's a couple things I think about, right? Especially once we start opening up, is like, where am I in relation to this fire? That's huge. Am I in its exhaust, right? Because think about it, like, we have things that are closed up, and then I start opening things, that shit's coming straight towards me because I've
Right.
changed the flow path, right? So if there's no water on the fire yet, the biggest thing that you need to ask yourself is it possible to isolate?
Isolate.
Like, if I'm inside, so I'll put it in simple terms. Like, when I teach search and ventilation, like, whether there's water on the fire yet or not, I'm very specific on, this is for an isolated space, right? Because why? We can prove that, right? That goes back way back to the beginning when we started all this of answering questions and saying you have to be able to bring things to the table that you can prove.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's not opinion. That's fact based and that's scientific based. So, like, we have all that information. Fact based and scientific based, Governor Island study. If no one's heard of it, you need to go research it, because that'll answer all your questions about ventilation right there. It was proven that as long as we're isolated behind a closed door, right, taking the window to get lift and all that other stuff has zero to little effect on the fire, even if there's no water on the fire, because we're isolated from the space. UL just proved that same thing. What they say in their study, even if there's floor to ceiling combustion in the hallway behind a closed door, opening up makes no difference, right? It's not going to have an adverse effect on fire behavior. So that would be my first consideration. How far is my fire attack to the fire? Are they at it yet? And am I able to isolate it before I start breaking stuff? Because there is a great benefit to be had from ventilating horizontally, especially in the realm of search. Like, if I'm isolated, I take that window and I get that lift. Not only can I see better, but I'm also putting my victims in a better place because I'm getting that lift. So all the stuff that's going to kill them is now rising and exiting. And let's say that for sake of conversation, I missed somebody on the primary, right? By taking that window and then closing the door when I leave that room and continuing my search, if this secondary crew comes through and they find that victim, I left that victim in the most advantageous place that they could be to increase their survival odds by closing the door behind me and ventilating the window while I was in that room. Fact. That is fact. So those are the things that I would bring to people, and have that conversation.
No, I love it, man. One more question coming at you from Jonathan Fitzgerald. He said, and it's basically second story VES air conditioning unit, push it in or pull it out.
Oh, man. So I don't like pushing things in, all right? Because go back, like whether I agree with it or not, go back to like when VES became like this people thing that like everybody got crazy over and was like, yeah. What they teach you? Take the window, sweep the floor, sound the floor, right? Why are we sweeping the floor?
Looking for that vic.
For the victim. Why are we sounding the floor? To make sure there's one there. Right. So when I think about like pushing in versus pulling out, if I push that in, did I just inadvertently like throw some weight inside that's going to take my floor away from me, right, before I enter? And did I just inadvertently throw some weight inside that could crush a victim? Potentially, right? I don't know where they're at yet, because guess what? I got to move this thing out of the way before I can get in there and do the sweep, right? So I'm going to say in my personal opinion, I opt to always push that sucker out, if I can. You may not be in a position where you can, but if that is my option, I'm first going to look around me, and I'm going to make it very clear, like, watch out. I'm pulling that thing out. One, I want it out of the way, right? But two, I don't want to cause any harm to somebody that might be in there, and I don't want to put any extra stress on a floor that might be compromised that doesn't need to be there. So that might sound a little far-fetched, but here's the reality of it. Let's say we push it in. Cool. I have now one more obstacle in my way should I choose to come back out that way with a victim. I've now got to worry about moving this thing out of my way and then position a victim when I could have just been done with it in the first place. So that's my stance on it. I can't say that that's right or wrong, but that's why I think the way I do. So
there's your stance and your reasoning, and you're glad to debate it over an ice cold brew.
That's right. That's right.
Jasper Miller wants to know, how do we teach critical, I think you touched on this a little bit, but I'll still throw it at you. How do we teach critical thinking skills, which in turn makes excellent and a thorough search?
So there's only so much stuff that you can teach in training, right? So one of the things that we do in training all the time is we always set our students up for success, which is terrible because you're not going to always be successful. I mean, that's reality. So in that, I think the biggest thing is like when you're trying to like train people and everything else like that, like see where their mindset's at. Give them a problem they have to work through and don't always make them successful. Like we tend to put victims in places that are common all the time, right? Like, oh, I'm in a bedroom. I know I'm probably going to find a victim in here. Yeah, no shit. Also tend to put victims in places that are just like off the freaking wall where you'd never find a victim. So we kind of take away from that too. So be intentional with things. Like when you implement it, like make sure like that whatever it is that's being done It has purpose and meaning, and it's going to build, right? Don't make them successful all the time. Don't make them fail all the time. Hell, you don't even have to put a victim in there every time. If you're just worried about like technique and you're just trying to teach technique, then don't tell them there's no victim. Have them search like there's a victim in there, but you don't need to put one. The second thing I would say is like get away from hose dummies and all that other shit. Like start training how we're going to do things in real life, which is real people. So if I have the option to use a real person as a victim, let's use a real person, right? Make that person, make them work for it, right? So like, if I can put a 170-pound dude on the floor when I have a 300-pound dude sitting over there, no, that 300-pound dude now becomes the victim, right? So kind of like side railed that conversation, but I think whatever it is that we do, it has to be done intentionally and make sure that there's a reason and a learning objective behind it.
Absolutely love that, man. Absolutely love intentionality. One of my favorite words, just the concept. John Shearburn, sorry, John, from a volley apartment with a lot of new guys that are loving the search drills. What is your best advice on getting some of the older members on board with doing those drills? Seems like if they know what the training is, they don't show up.
So, I mean, that's a common theme anytime we talk about training. It doesn't matter what the training is.
Right.
I mean, like, you talk about any department USA. There's guys and girls in that department that don't like to train. Like, it is what it is. Like that's a culture that's been allowed to thrive within an organization. And, that the reality is like, not everybody's a winner. Like not everybody are you going to be able to get buy-in from. And that goes back to what we were saying earlier. You have to focus your efforts on where you can get buy-in. So, like listening to the scrap with John Sparrow, like he's talking about fitness. Like, how do you get people to buy into fitness, right? You tailor your fitness, even though it may not be what you want to do. Tailor your fitness for the day to a level that person is able to thrive in, right? And let them know that it's possible. Like, hey, you could do this. Like, we're here to do this thing together. It's the same thing with any search or with any drills, any training drills we do. We might have a plan in our mind of what we want to accomplish, but that's not the point. If you're talking about trying to get buy-in from other people, maybe it's older members in the organization or anything, you know what? I'd be happy if they were just out there watching. Period. Like if they made an effort to come out to the bay or wherever we're at doing this thing, and they're just watching, whether it's for their own amusement, like whether they're being like taking things positively or they're talking shit and they're just being super negative, they're still observing. So, that's an opportunity to where like they can speak up too. I don't care if you're not participating right off the bat. Like if you've got something to say, you say, and you're like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Why do you do it that way? I'm gonna say, well, okay. How would you like me to do it?
Right.
All right. And I'm gonna let them give their input. And I'm gonna say, okay, I'll do it that way, and then I'll do it my way, and then you can see why I choose the way. Or hey, why don't you show me how you do it? That's a huge one for me. Like I don't do things. I do things the way that I feel comfortable with and what I believe in, right? Yes. And you're going to be doing the same thing, and somebody else is going to be doing the same thing. They're passionate about something, they believe in it, and that's why they do it. Right. This person may be passionate and believe in their way of doing things, so include them. Okay, cool. You come up with the next drill and you lead it, and then we'll do it that way. And now you get it. And you know what? They may not want to. They might say, "No, I'm not doing that." Okay. The worst thing we can do for people is force our views on them, right? Force them to do something, especially when it comes to training. Like for me, a lot of the times in my career, training was like a negative thing because it was disciplinary.
Right.
Like, oh, you guys messed up at that fire. You're pulling hose for the next 3 hours. And you're like, great. So every time you heard the word training, you're like, who messed up now?
Right.
What happened now? And it was not a very positive thing. So for those people, you don't know what their story is. You don't know why they don't like to train. Maybe they're just not into the job, right? And they're just there to collect a paycheck and for the benefits and whatever. Okay. But I guarantee you they're into something, right? So that goes back to the culture. Like figure out what that person is into, be able to relate to them, and then like later start bringing them into the training, right? I can tell you right now that if I don't know you or I don't like you or whatever the case is, I'm probably not listening very well to you. But if we can change the vibe and I can make you feel like you have input and value, right? And that I care about what you think and your views, even if we don't agree, then you're going to start to get a little bit of buy-in. And they might go from like watching to no, 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 no. Hey, let me show you something. I had an old captain who retired that showed me this thing. Let me show this to you.
Right.
You might learn something.
Right? That's the best part.
So like, let's not count those people out and think that they don't know anything, and they just don't like to train and they're a fucking scab, because that they may not be the case. They may be actually be very uncomfortable with what you're doing because nobody took the time to show them how to do it, and they don't want to look dumb.
Right on.
Right? So gradually include them. Don't just like make this an expectation from the start and then shame them for not participating.
Yeah. That's a big part of it, is that shame, dignity, self-respect. And also the, hey, you guys are doing it wrong. You old people are doing it wrong. This is the new way to do it. That whole thing. And you got to have that shared understanding of the purpose of whatever you're trying to do, because then it's about the purpose and there's no right or wrong. It's just effective.
Right.
And
what's the mission?
Yeah.
Right? I tell students all the time who take my class, listen, if this tripod stance is uncomfortable for you because it hurts your hips or does whatever, fine. I'm not here to hurt you. Figure out a position that makes you more agile, that increases your speed and your efficiency, and I'm fine with that, because what is the mission? Completing the primary search, finding victims, and removing them. If you could do that in a timely manner, one that we can all agree on that like fits that time frame, then I don't really give a shit how you do it. Just do it in a way that works for you, so that like when we're all in there together and we're moving through, I don't have to worry about like stopping and saying like, hey, like, are you coming? Like, let's go. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And you'll find that most people do have a fallback. Like if you start from like the hands and knees crawl, most people throughout the day will find a position where they can fall back into efficiency. With any training scenario you will ever do, most people have a go-to thing that they know that works very well for them. So the thing is, show me what you know. Why does it work for you? Tell me why it works for you. And then we're going to work together and figure out how to implement this into what everybody else is doing, so that you can keep up and be just as much part of the crew as everyone else.
Nice. Great answer. Jason Haynes says, after your years of experience and training over the years, what is your favorite method of search if the structure allows for it?
Man, I'm a huge believer in split search. I don't need another person in a room with me unless it's like a pretty large room, like an open area, or maybe like a master bedroom that's pretty large. I just don't. Most buildings are set up in like a box, and you got to be able to divvy that up. So like when we think about split search, we're thinking about, okay, first, and again, this is just me. I'm going to split that building in half. Can I effectively search half this building, with the crew that I have, right? What if I have 6,000 square feet? Then obviously I'm going to need more than one search crew. Do I even have that to my availability? If the answer is yes, great, act accordingly. If the answer is no, that goes back onto, okay, we can effectively search maybe this 2,500 square foot section, and we're going to cut that in half between the two of us. And we're going to keep communication. We're going to constantly like touch base with each other, and we're just going to move through spaces and make this happen, right? My house is like 1,100 square feet. It's not very big. 2 searchers should be able to search 1,100 square feet. If you break that down, one left, one right, that's 500 square feet per person, roughly. That is not a whole lot of space, right? So we tend to look at things and go, oh, that's way too big, we're going to get lost, instead of bringing it back into like, what is the objective? How can I effectively search the most areas? The answer to that is split search, period. The second answer to that, again, in my belief and my training and everything else that I've experienced, is if you choose to enter by way of window, don't just like prioritize one room. if you have to prioritize that room and then get out, fine. But if you don't, man, if you're entering in the bedroom, 81% of the time we're gonna find a victim in it, right? If we're going by way of VES, right? Bam, right in that room. 19% of the time we find them in the hallway or another adjacent room. So why are we only prioritizing one out of 3 to 4, maybe 5 bedrooms in a house? If conditions allow us and we enter by way of window because maybe fire attack's going to go this way and we just figure this is the fastest way into where people are located, then my second go-to would be extending the search beyond the room of entry, right? Like, and then once you do that, you can transition back into a split search if you're able to, right? So it's really about understanding like what conditions you have and what are you able to do with your crew, their ability, their knowledge, all of that stuff. But I would say hands down, if I had the choice every single time, like I want a split search. To me, I found that the most effective way to clear an area. And we find a lot of victims that way. I think it's like 37% of the time that we choose that, we're finding victims with that technique. So, I mean, obviously, it's one of the highest probability odds that we can do aside from VES.
Love it. Love it. Good question from Jason Haynes. I'm waiting. Kyle's typing. He's high speed.
High speed type.
High speed, low drag.
It's that nozzle. That's what it is.
I'll come to it because he's adding to it. Can you expand more on hoarding conditions? This comes from Garrett Rose. I'm sorry, Garrett. Garrett Rose says, 2-part question. Can you expand more on hoarding conditions, particularly if you're doing a VES? What is your process and how much time are you going to dedicate to that one room before moving to another? In your experience, how often does all the amount of crap fall onto our victims to where they may be missed?
So I'm not an expert in hoarding conditions. I've had very few fires in my career where I've actually experienced conditions like that. So let me speak to what I know, right? And what has happened on the fires that I've been to that we met those conditions. I know a lot of people preach that like you can tell from the outside that there's hoarding conditions present. A lot of times you can, but not always, right? I've come into a house from the outside, you had no idea until you go to enter. So his question is by way of VES, right? Is that what he's talking about? Okay, so if you take that window, right, and maybe you're not getting like a whole lot of smoke or anything like that, and you go to poke in and you just feel like you have a lot of content, I'm going to tell you personally, that could be a slippery slope. One, we don't really have an accurate gauge of how high this stuff is stacked, right? Which puts us in a bad way because we go diving in and that stuff comes crashing down. Like now we're in a Mayday situation. Most hoarding type things, at least in my experiences, they're going to have pathways, right? But you know what? They're not really using those bedrooms. Right. I'll be honest with you, like,
and they're not making those pathways to the window,
right? And they don't. Most people don't. Like it. If they happen to use the bedroom, most people are like in the living area, like the living room or something like that, because it's a larger area. The first thing they pack full of shit is the bedrooms.
Right.
I mean, that's proven true in almost every hoarding condition that I've seen. So if that is your way in for whatever reason, I would suggest to, if your building construction allows, to take a saw and make that window into a door and start pulling things out. Right, and pushing your way in rather than just diving headfirst in and then going, because these trails are not that wide. It's just large enough for them to get through. And if they're starting to pack stuff through, like you find yourself crawling up and over things, like that's a bad thing. You should probably not do that. Right. So in my area, like not my area where I work, but like in Michigan, we have basements. So let's think about this for a second. All this shit on the first floor, pushing down on all the support beams into the basement, and then we're throwing water on top of it. That's a lot of weight. So it's going to potentially collapse, right? You don't want to be going up and over things into a floor that's collapsed and you go head over heels. So as terrible as this sounds,
It's a recipe. That's a recipe for
it's
disaster.
it's a recipe for disaster. And as terribly as this sounds, when we're talking about hoarder conditions like this, we got to slow some shit down. I mean, we do,
Hmm.
and
You
we
really,
got to really think about like how how are we going to do our things and where are we going to do those things in relation to where they may not be, right? If we come to a window and it's just packed full of shit and we think, hey, maybe this person's in the living room, and we go to that window and start doing that, then we inch our way closer to them by pulling stuff out and making this manageable. What kind of victim are we dealing with? Are
yeah.
we dealing with like an average frame victim, or are we dealing with like a 3, 4, 5, 600 pound person? This all is going to play a role in this thing. So slow down, man. I would say like if you go to VES and you have hoarding conditions, that's probably not a window that I would want to dive headfirst into. Um, not without getting some stuff out of my way first.
Great stuff, man. Someone set it up here. Michael Brian Updike said, hoarding conditions flip the script. The hoarder now dictates conditions and egress. That's a great way of looking at it, man. It really is.
Yeah, 100%.
Garrett Rose, sorry, dude, I keep misreading that E. Garrett Rose said, you bring up a great point. Every hoarder home fire I've been to, they pretty much live out of the living room. Rooms are packed full, so based on what you're saying, our target needs to be the living room if we notice hoarding conditions.
Yeah, I mean that
It's
would be the
definitely
first
something to
thing.
keep in mind, yeah.
Yeah, and that, like I said, no always or never, right? That's not saying that we're always going to find them there, or that we never will. But if I had one place to target in a hoarding condition, it's probably not the bedrooms, and that goes against everything we know from the survey data, right? Like everything we know from the survey data says what? Bedrooms and hallways are our two highest, followed by like family rooms, living rooms, things like that. So I can take that data and understand, like, okay, so the third place that I'm most likely to find a victim is in the living room, like family area. All right, well, I have hoarding conditions, so that's going to be my number one place
Yeah,
now.
period.
And that's just my mindset, you know? So,
I got to read this one to you because it's from Justin Fraze. And it says, every question that Corley asks is like pulling the string on a super fire nerd chatty Cathy doll. My boy Duffy is wicked smart.
oh man, praise is good. That's
Good
I actually
people.
stole like all the worst parts of the Bible from that man right there. He's a great dude. He's hilarious. If you ever watch him teach, man, he just goes nuts out there and he starts yelling and
Oh
screaming.
yeah,
He says some hilarious
it's
stuff.
to behold. Yes.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
it's great.
this one comes from Kyle Ramagas. What are some takeaways from the lecture Searchable versus Survivable, and how is it different from other search classes? Specifically, what are some reasons that a training officer should book it for their department?
Excellent question. So I'll tell you right off the bat, if you're looking for like a how do we search class, that's like as far as like technique, like tripod and like all that. How do we carry our tools? That's not me. I don't do that. My search class, the searchable versus survivable, the title is the way it is for a reason. It's meant to make us think. It's a mindset class that not a single one of us in this world has the ability to know like if someone's alive or dead. We don't play God. We don't get to choose that. But what we do is we show up prepared, right? We take the things we know through like a good size up, understanding firefighter rescue survey data, understanding UL data, fire behavior, smoke reading, all of those things, building instruction or construction included. We take all of those things and we have a conversation of where do we do our first things and why? What can support us putting a search team ahead of the hand line? Why are we putting person in a window versus going through a front door? Why are we dedicating two people inside of a window on a VES operation versus one at the window and one at the in the room? Like we talk about all of these things of how can we enhance our victims' survival odds, right? What is it that we can do? Because here's the thing: the clock is ticking, right? And the only thing that we can do as the fire department, we don't guess their odds. That's not what we show up and do. We're there to give them the most probability, right? We give them the odds. And we can only do that if we truly understand how to implement all these things, what's the best way for our fire department, our staffing levels, and things like that. So there's three very distinct things that I put in play as far as objectives. It's knowledge, ability, and time, right? let's not forget that search is probably one of the most taxing things, if not the most taxing thing that you're probably ever going to do on the fire ground, because you're moving with a purpose. I mean, you're hustling. If you get out of the building after searching and you're not winded, you didn't search. Sorry, you didn't do your job, right? So having the correct knowledge base and being able to prove that, operating based off of facts and not fear is huge, right? And seeing where these firefighter rescue surveys, which we can prove, how does that affect our mindset? Because there's a lot of fire departments that have made policies, right, and procedures on how we should operate, especially when it comes to search and rescue operations, that goes against everything we now know. And the things with policies and procedures is they should always be like revisited to see, like, are we up to current and best practice? Do we even know what best practice is? Because if we don't, then are we doing the best for our civilians? So I would say the best takeaway from this program is that, again, I'm not there to change anyone's policies and procedures. I'm there to have a conversation to make people think. How does your fire department operate? What is your staffing levels? Can you improve your level of functionality? And most importantly, do you even have fit firefighters that are capable of doing the tasks that you're about to give them? Because we can have all this knowledge, right? And we can make all these policies and all these things be great. But if you don't have the ability to perform and understand what it is you're actually doing, it means absolutely nothing, right? So search and rescue are not the same thing. We're going to put people in a building to search for civilians. The rescue happens after we actually find them. So the second part of the class is, what do we do next? I found them. That's great. All our plan worked all the way up to this point. Do we have a plan to get them out? And if so, what is that plan? And how are you utilizing people inside that building? What if you have 2 victims or 3, right? So there's some things we're able to prove. One of those being every 2 hours and 30 seconds in this country, we find civilians, right? Direct actions of firefighters on scene are finding victims. We're able to prove that from Chief Brian Brush.
Right on.
2, we're able to determine that single-family residence probably has 1 or more victims. Multifamily residence, we can expect 3 or more. So these are some things that we can already set ourselves up for before we even get to these fires that we should be thinking. But if you don't know what those are, it doesn't matter what you do, right? You got to be able to figure out, and then the other is, where does our data fit into this, right? What fire do I have? How much fire drama do I have? And what are my crew's capabilities? And where can I search? How can I search? And all those things. Simply put, to answer Kyle's question, the whole intent of the class is, at the end of the day, every single one of us, when we show up to a fire, right, we are going to live with the decisions that we've made for the rest of our life, whether those be positive or negative. So when you make a decision, you better damn well be confident it's the right one, or at least be pretty sure that this is what we need to be doing right now. And it's so easy for people nowadays to hide behind things like risk a lot, save a lot, benefit analysis, or 2 in, 2 out, or it was fully involved and there was nothing that we can do, as excuses of why they didn't do what they swore to their civilians they would do, because they are not up to date on what is happening around them. So that's it.
And one of the best lectures on search that I've attended. So, one of, absolutely. What is your opinion? Let's see. How can you build a winning culture? We're going to switch to culture a little bit. You ready for it?
Yeah, let's do it.
And of course, I'm not ignoring more questions. If more questions come in on search, I mean, how are you doing on time and stuff? We're at an hour 20.
I got all the time for you in the world, man.
People are still in here and they're still sending questions. So
you are my broham. I'll stay here all night for you.
I got to report to duty at 7 a.m. So
I don't have to report anywhere except the airport at noon tomorrow. So
the tail end of my 4-day.
Let's keep it rolling. Yeah.
How can you build? Nathan Pips wants to know, how can you build a winning culture? I'm gonna say this real quick. If you, I wish I'd have said it before I banned them, but if you can't be respectful in your comments during the scrap, make the last one you do a good one, because you're just gonna get banned. So keep it respectful, or I'll see you later. The scrap doesn't need you. So that being said, Nathan Pips wants to know, how can you build a winning culture with firefighters that love to train rather than dreading it?
Well, I mean, one of the biggest things is the people that are part of the problem, you can't leave in charge of the solution, right? So if there's things going on in your organization you'd like to change, you got to have the right players in motion, right? So that comes back to like way before they're even hired, right? And so for me, culture can be encompassed very easily. Your administration is going to and firefighters probably be on an interview panel. So the first question is like, what kind of culture do you want to see within your organization? Not just now, but in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are your goals? And you've got to interview people and make sure that they align with those goals because um, there's this analogy that like culture is a giant battleship with a tiny rope, right? You let the wrong players on that ship, you'll never gain control of it. It's just not going to happen. So um, that goes back into to me, like, hey, who's here? Maybe some people felt like, or maybe some people made their way through the cracks. It happens. It is what it is. Maybe they were engaged and now they're not. I guarantee you, though, there's always a handful of people in your organization that are still engaged. And those are the people that you need to network with and understand that this is not something that's going to happen overnight. You need to get on the same page. You need to develop a plan. You need to implement that plan intentionally. You have to have patience, right? And most of all, whatever it is that you're trying to do has to be self-sustaining because the reality is every single one of us in the fire service, we're temporary employees. We're either going to retire, right, at some point when we're at the end of our career. We're going to leave because we don't want to do it anymore or medical reasons or whatever the case that lets us exit. Or you're going to get fired because your performance is just not what it needs to be. So when we can understand that and we say, what is it that I want to implement? Again, it goes back to intentionality. We have to have a plan. What's the purpose of this plan? Is it self-sustaining? Is it something that we can implement that's going to be able to carry on through generations of firefighters? And most importantly, everyone has an opinion, and that's great. We don't just change shit in our organizations because we don't like it. It has to have a purpose, right? And whatever that purpose is, you need to take your personal viewpoint out of it and realize, like, is this what's best for my agency? Right? Is this going to make us perform better? Is this going to make us safer? Is this going to bring people to my agency? Because changes that you make, like you own those, right? That your culture that you set forward, is it going to either bring you great people to work for your organization or it's going to cost you great people? So those are all things we need to think about when we're developing like this plan and who we want to bring along with us is think long term, man. We all got problems we want to fix right now.
Yeah.
Those are the easy problems, right? Things that we can fix like in a week, those aren't real problems. Right? We need to think long term, like what problems do we have inside of our organizations that are going to dictate how this department or this organization operates through the next 15, 20, 30 years, right? That I'm here because you're the one that's going to have to see that through. When you start some shit, you better finish it. Right. And if you're just starting some stuff because you're upset about the way things are going and you don't agree with it, then you're not trying to create change for the right reason. It's really about enhancing, like what can we do to enhance our current situation so we can kind of get us back on track, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. I mean, 100%. Yeah. Nathan Pip said 100%. No, I like it. Lots more on, I can see if I got more. How do you get your training? Man, dude, there's like 40 questions over there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. Pulling up the topics we talked about earlier. Yeah, your personal views on where culture begins. I think you kind of crushed that right there.
Yeah, there's the thing about culture that like it's pretty simple, and it's three things that people need to understand when it comes to culture. Like you either have a certain kind, you want to be a certain kind, or you're in that transition of becoming a certain kind. Those are your three options, really. So you got to figure out where you're at in that mix. Like if the culture you have right now is a certain way and you don't really have what you want, then you've got to like put the things in place to start becoming that kind of culture you want, And it's easy for us to look at other organizations and say like, well, they do it. Like we should do that too. But keep in mind, just because like another organization is like that's their identity. You have to find your own identity. Like, what is your identity as your organization that you want to see? Because there's lots of things that happen in the fire service, and not every one of them is like a fix for your agency or your current problem. So as good as it is to look to other agencies for guidance and like maybe the way they're doing things and stuff, like we have to keep an open mind and understand that that may not always work for us.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. All right, you ready for more search questions?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Patrick Red, what's your preferred terminology for the non-entry buildings? Vacant, abandoned, derelict, dilapidated, etc. And how do these buildings conditions alter your search tactics or mindset?
Oh man, so we talk about that in the lecture on terminology, and here's the thing: vacant, abandoned, you know, all that stuff. Those are post search terminology, in my opinion. Like those are things that you can say after you've been in the building. Now,
Right.
so what drives me crazy when we show up is we say, "Oh, I'm on scene of a 2-story vacant." Okay, how do you know? Fires don't just happen by themselves, right? Like either somebody set that thing, you know, as an act of nature, whatever. It's not uncommon in a lot of like areas that don't have a whole lot, like poverty stricken areas, right? It's not uncommon for people like that's what they have. They just go in, or like the homeless, especially in the wintertime and things like that. Like they're gonna find their way into those vacant buildings so they can get out of the elements. Like it is what it is. And again, these are things that we can improve, right? It's we find people in vacant structures all the time. If we look back to the firefighter rescue survey, like 4% of all the 2,000 victims that were found in vacant structure fires. People say like 4% is not a whole lot, but those are people, man. Those are civilians that we found in buildings that people were not supposed to be in. So I don't think that we can say from the outside right off the get go that like nobody's in there. With that being said, a lot of it building condition, right? So if like the roof's already caved in, it's been on fire 3 or 4 different times, and you know we've known that. Like those will probably try and change my mindset a little bit and slow things down. But I'm always going to look for the spaces that I can occupy. So one of the things that I tell people is, all right, so you show up and like you're not comfortable with putting crews in this building. That's not for me to tell you that you should or you shouldn't. But most firefighters care, or most fire departments on their apparatus have thermal imagers now, right? So what if I can just get to this one window that I have this opportunity and scan it with the thermal imager? Now that's not replacing searching with my hands like I need to do, but if that is the only attempt that I can have in that situation to try and locate a civilian, is it not worth at least doing that? I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even go that far. They leave the thing on the truck and they call it vacant and abandoned, and we're just going to control burn this thing to the ground. And you pull people out. I have some friends that work in Highland Park and Detroit, and they will tell you all the time in their areas, vacant buildings are not uncommon, and they find people in there all the time. So if they're finding them at a high rate like that, and they're still making entry into buildings that allow them to based off their conditions and the experience of their crews and things like that, most of us in this country are not experiencing it to the volume they are, right? So I would say unless that thing is damn near falling down to the ground and it's definitely not safe, if we can make entry in any place and search, then we owe it to anybody in there to possibly do that. Now the second part to that is, why are we waiting till the building's on fire to go see what the conditions are inside? If you know these buildings exist in your response district, why are you not out there and getting inside them and seeing what hazards there are? Because you might get in there and realize like, oh shit, there's no floor. Okay, so now what process do you have in place to label that building so every firefighter knows showing up, this is not a building we make entry into? Do we have one? So those are programs we need to start looking at, implementing and telling firefighters what they are. So this is kind of a broad approach to it. There's a lot that goes into making those decisions.
No, it's beautiful. I always ask a vigilante question of the week. It comes from the private group vigilantes. They get to post their questions. I dig through them and find the best ones. The thing is, most of you answered through the course of the audience questions. So I'm throwing Jonah Fatags at you. And his vigilante question is, as an informal leader, what are some good ways to help change the mindset or culture of my crew from one that plays it safe to one that prioritizes the victims, the search, and tactical aggression?
So his question is, what are some ways that they can shift their mindset? Is that what I understand?
Yeah.
Think back about your experiences, right? I've talked to firefighters that have been on the job longer than me, and I've asked questions like, why do you feel the way you feel, like about search in particular? And some of the answers you get like kind of make you a little irritable, because some of them will say, I've been to a lot of fires in 20 plus years and I haven't found a victim in one yet. So I'm comfortable with saying that unless it's reported that there's someone inside, I'm not fucking going. So to shift the mindset, it goes back to everything we've been talking about. You've got to show the people why we need to go. Like, and this isn't saying that like being an aggressive firefighter and being a reckless firefighter are two separate things, right? There's lots of firefighters out there that'll just go into anything because like they think that's what we do, and that's not what we do. There is a point where we show up and say, listen, guys, this is just not safe for us. Like, we will get somebody seriously injured or killed if we do this. And you got to know when those points are. But majority of the time, you also got to have the comfortability in your skills and your knowledge base and your experience to realize, like, when you show up and there is something that you can do, you owe it to that civilian to do it. You owe it. You have to. So, again, arm yourself with information coupled with real world experiences. If I could say in my career that I've been on, let's say 30 fires, and out of those 30 fires, I found people in 6 of them. Okay, well, that means that I found people in fires, which means, hey, people live in fires. But those are just my experience, or people are found in fires. But those are just my experiences, right? My experiences alone are only going to take me so far. What is the National Firefighter Association telling me, right? What is Firefighter Rescue Survey telling me? What is UL telling me? What are other firefighters around the country telling me of what they found? What is the information that's being compiled? Like, every time we go to a fire, we fill out a NIFRS report. That's mandatory. Unfortunately, NIFRS reports don't really document well. Like,
they track our losses, not really our wins.
They do. So I guess to sum it all up without getting on a tangent, I would take a page out of Chief Brush's book, and I would say, if all we ever do is focus on risk, we never focus on our benefits.
Nice.
There's a lot of benefits that we have by being aggressive firefighters and knowing what our capabilities are and knowing how far we can push in certain situations, right? Fire looks big. Put some water on it, it goes down, So often, people call things fully involved, and you get some water on that, and you start making a push, and you realize there's a lot of searchable space.
Right on.
You just rode off.
This is how connected we are. You got to piss, so it's break time for you.
Yeah, it's break time for me.
Hit it. I'll do some announcements.
All right, sounds good. All right, I'll be right back, and then we'll get to it from there.
This is the first. Usually it's me who abandons the guest.
No, I think Chief Isaacson had to do that one day too, right?
Did he? Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
3 hours. It was like a 3-hour scrap.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'll be right back.
That was the vigilante question of the week. It came from Jonah Fateg. I love the answer, man. I absolutely love when Sean says he's going to answer a question without going on a tangent. I'm not sure that's possible. It's not in his wheelhouse. So, I'm going to do some of the stuff that I usually do at the end while he's gone. The 6th forum is coming up this Wednesday. If you want to be a part of it, join the Vigilantes. You can join it at firehousevigilance.com. Chief Shannon Stone is coming on to talk with us. He's going to talk about his podcast, Refined by Fire, episode 18. It's going to be a blast, man. I'm excited about it. Don't often get guests to come in, but I'm going to try and do it more often, especially because we can just focus down on one thing with them, and you get to interact with them. It's way more informal than the scrap is, as far as it's all just live discussion. Anyway, the Scraps killer lineup for 2022 continues. Sean Duffy tonight, Joe Yowler, John Spiro was last week. Joe Yowler is next week. And then the Mega Scrap Charlie. It's happening. The actual date I want to say is December 6th. Don't quote me on that. It's close to that, but I don't have my calendar pulled up. Mega Scrap Charlie, Brian Brush, Steve Robertson, Jerry Herbst. It is going to be all about attack packages, nozzles, hose, Mega Scrap Charlie. It's going to be amazing. Flowing water. It's been in the works for a while. There was a point where I wasn't going to do more Mega Scraps, but we actually discussed it on the Vigilantes and said, what do you guys think? And they were like, no, absolutely, have to do them. So that's part of the beauty of it, is they get to pick the direction of what's going to happen. And they give me a lot of insight into what people want in theory. If you want to get stickers, man, I'm still bribing people as often as possible for stickers, man. Sticker packs, I'm sending them out. Rate the podcast. Get Scrappy up there, yeah. Rate the podcast. There's the Creed. Give it 5 stars. I'm not sending stickers for 4 stars. Rate the podcast. Give it 5 stars. Send me a screenshot. I will send you a sticker pack. Also, you can do it if you want to double up, especially. Go rate Challenger Leader, or not Challenger, the 9Ls on Amazon. Go to Amazon. Give it 5 stars. And again, I'm bribing people any chance I can with stickers. Let me see if anybody's got anything in here. Yeah, you did. Mindset and a plan to win. CF Tactics. You got to start wearing. Yeah. Andrew McGinn. We got to start wearing them Depends when you get on the scrap. I love it, man. I love it. Just seeing if I missed any questions. I guess he really had to piss. I went through all my announcements and I got nothing left for you guys. Pretty excited about Great Lakes Hot up in Michigan. If anybody's going to be, I'm excited for a couple weeks. Is anybody going to be at H-Rock? Because I will be at H-Rock attending and soaking it in, the experience. I'm excited. Wasn't sure I was going to get to make it down there, but I am going down there. It was the final H-Rock. I had to be there. Dun-dun-dun. Sean, I miss you.
I'm back.
This is why I always bring a guest, because
my kids I thought they were in bed, and they're like, hey, say goodnight to me. So
let's play hide and seek, Dad.
Yeah, I was like, no. I had to go tuck them in real quick too. So.
Oh, you're awesome, man. No big deal. I was just talking about Great Lakes Hot, man.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be great. No pun intended, but it's last year was good. It had like 50 people.
This is year 2, yeah?
This is year 2.
Nice.
So it's still in its infancy stages. But the whole intent is like, so here in the state of Michigan, it's a little weird with training, man. You got some really motivated firefighters. You also have people that don't want to go to training. So
sounds familiar.
Yeah. Being in Florida, man, I was spoiled when I lived in Florida. Is like almost every weekend, whether it's pools chapters or something like that, like you just go find training. It was great. So with that, when I moved to Michigan, I was like, first question, hey, where are the fire conferences at? Not a whole lot of them. Like usually they were like for fire chiefs and things like that. So I decided to make my own and bring my friends like you and everybody else. So
right on, man. I'm excited.
Essentially what it is for anybody who can't like go to FDIC or Firehouse Expo or any other conference around the country is we got people from all over the nation and some people here in Michigan that are really, really good at what they do. And we're going to bring like top tier conference level instructors to the state and provide quality training. So it's pretty affordable. It's like $325 for 3 days. You get fed, each day, all that good stuff. So, and it's live fire on the last day. So you get to put into play with real scenarios. Each instructor kind of makes a scenario based off an experience they've had. And that's where we get our scenarios from. So we're not just making up shit and throwing it at students. These are real calls. If you sign up for like the officer development track, you're in charge of running the scene. So whether whether you're an officer currently or you're an aspiring officer, something like that, you're going to get the opportunity to run a whole fire ground scenario and tell people what to do and all that good stuff. Call for extra resources, whatever it is you need to do. And then we'll have engine work, truck work, and then we have a track for Rob Ramirez and the guys from National Rescue Consultants. They're coming out. They're doing Mayday Mindset.
Nice.
That whole track and everything else. So it's going to be an action-packed, fun-filled 3 days of fellowship. So I'm looking forward to it.
Had to show off the shirt. I was rocking them tonight. National Rescue Consultants.
There you go.
No, absolutely. In fact, Rob was in here making comments. I don't know if he's still in here, but he was in here making comments earlier.
Oh,
Basically just saying how much he loves you.
Oh yeah, he's one of my favorite people, man. He's a great dude.
Good dude. Good dude. No, 1,000. Yeah. Trying not to say 1,000% too much. All right.
I hear you, man.
Book or books that you think firefighters should be reading?
Oh man. So for me, I actually have this one here. This is what I'm currently reading right now. David Grohl.
I listened to that one, man. Yes.
Oh man, that's such a great book, and it's not fire related, but it goes to show you, like, if you want something bad enough and you stick with it, you could excel far beyond like what you ever thought was possible. And just hearing his experiences from like a child and all the things he went through, like, it makes you laugh. So it's not just like serious. It's got some comical aspects to it, but yeah, it's
no, dude, I loved it.
There's a lot of that can translate over to the fire service, I think, personally. But and then I have a couple, like, so I'm terrible with like reading, and I'm always on the go. So I've always got to find like things that I can listen to on a plane or like during a car ride or whatever. So the two books that I haven't finished that I'm in the middle of right now, one was Make Your Bed.
Right.
McRaven. McRaven. So anybody who doesn't know who McRaven is, he did that like famous like Facebook speech about making your bed in the morning and things like that. So it has his 10 things that he learned through Navy training that has helped him throughout his life overcome challenges and just overall be a better person. And those are some pretty good examples in there that he gives. And then the other one is Make the Time. So Make the Time, I've gotten through like maybe like 4 chapters, but initially what the whole thing is that is like, we all say, I'm too busy.
Right.
I don't have enough time. Right. And the whole premise behind the book is like, nobody wakes up every morning and looks at their calendar and says, oh, hey, like, I'm just going to fill it with business meetings or I'm just going to go to work and scroll Facebook for 5 hours. Like, nobody does that. But unfortunately, that's what winds up happening. So instead of like succumbing to our environment, it gives you ways that you can adapt to your environment and create time for you.
Right.
And still make the most out of your day, despite how busy you may appear on paper or any of that stuff. So we often make excuses, and that's the first one we go to is I don't have time. And this shows you that that's exactly what that is. Like, your excuses suck, right?
Right on.
That's about it. So those are ones that I'm reading right now, and I enjoy them. So
awesome. No, I love it. 5 questions for firefighters. You've had one crack at them. And now it's the next 5 questions for firefighters. So here we go. Sean Duffy. The answers are 100% your opinion. There is no right or wrong. And the points are arbitrary, assigned by me and with the help of the audience. So my question for you is, are you ready for the next 5 questions for firefighters?
Always.
Here we go. Number 1, what single characteristic makes the difference between a run-of-the-mill firefighter and a top-tier, go-to, badass firefighter?
Oh, that's a simple one. Determination. Why I say determination is often people say motivation, which is great, but motivation will fail you. Right? Motivation gets you started, but it also only takes you so far. And anybody who's never experienced like defeat when they're motivated, often why they stop doing things is because they become unmotivated for whatever reasons. Maybe they fail, or maybe they're just like, this wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I didn't lose as much weight as I wanted to in this time period, or I didn't get promoted like I thought I was going to. It's the determination that's going to see you through. So when motivation fails you and you fall back on the determination and you realize, like, why did I start this journey in the first place, right? And you stay dedicated to that, and just doesn't matter how many times you fail or get passed up for promotion or get made fun of for training, whatever it is, you know deep down that you're determined for a specific purpose, and you will see that purpose through. To me, that's what makes great firefighters, is the fact that throughout their career they experience ebbs and flows. Some are great, some are not so great. Maybe they have some good influences, maybe they don't have some good influences, but they never lose sight of the reason they became a firefighter, and they never lost sight that they wanted to be a damn good.
Nice. And 1, 2, 3. I don't know. I quit counting how many people said max points scrolling by on the comments. So someone even threw in 1,000%. So yeah, max points on question 1. You started off strong. No pressure.
That's all I got. Sorry. That's it.
If you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice as a rookie, which you've had a few cracks at that, but as a rookie, what would it be?
Yeah, so you're right. I've had a few cracks at that, and it wasn't for any other reason that I chose to, right? And I'm pretty transparent with that. So if anybody wants more information, feel free to reach out. Shut up. Listen. I mean, that would be my advice. Very young, 18 years old, out of high school, I decided to become a volunteer fireman, and I just did not have that structure that most people are fortunate to have, of like, hey, when you come into the fire service, you want and you want to be, you want to listen. I was with a lot of younger firefighters myself. I mean, people that were maybe 2 years older than me and already captains on the job, and they've only been on the job 3 years, So guess who I was learning from? Those people. What I learned was a lot of bad habits, right? A lot of ego, a lot of arrogance. Like, I'm untouchable. I know shit. I've been to fires. I know how to do this shit. Like, what are you going to teach me? And I'll be honest, that did not pan out very well for me.
Right.
So I would say that's it, man. There's a lot of information to be shared, especially around the kitchen table. The senior members in your department, they're not all dumb. They're not all slobs. Some of them have stories of things that have happened that we probably will never experience in our careers, because the time of what they were experiencing versus what we're experiencing are very different. So just listen, man. The person that's at the table, like saying the least, is probably the most dialed in, because they're observant of everything going around them, whether it's what to do or what not to do. But you don't always have to be heard, and I know we all want to be liked in the fire service, and we all want to do things, and it's easy to kind of get in our groove. And I've been guilty of it too throughout the years. There's a time to just say nothing and just kind of pick up on what everybody else around you is saying, and just, even if it's not for information sharing, some of the stories you hear about people that were there before you are just straight hilarious
and gold. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just like, oh man, and it reminds you of why the job's so great, right? We got some characters that work in this job. So yeah, man, just do a little less talking. You got 2 ears, 1 mouth. Say the things that need to be said when they need to be said. Partake in the conversation when it's your time to partake, but just listen to what people are saying, man. That's it.
I love it, dude. I love it. And here's the funny part is, if you read the 9 L's, the first L is second L is listen. The first rule of listen, literally in a box in bold, is shut up and listen. That is the actual quote. So
love it.
That makes it an easy max points.
2 for 2.
Because yeah, absolutely. Number 3, we kind of touched on this already a little bit, but what is your favorite training drill?
Man, there's a lot of them, to be honest. So, kind of fast or rewinding a little bit in my career, I went through many years of getting to ride an engine, not really getting to do much truck stuff. We didn't even have the truck company. We had to attach another engine to fill that role, to becoming a paramedic and spending a lot of time on an ambulance and seeing things from a different perspective in that role, to now where I'm at now of now being, on a ladder truck most days, could be on an engine, so you have to really bounce back and forth. With that, there comes a lot of training, and I'll say I love all training, because there's a lot of things that I'm not so great at that I could be better at. that I get the opportunity to. But if I had to pick one drill specifically, man, this is going to be cliche, but it's always search drills. And the reason for that is not just because I love search, but because I always find something out about myself I didn't know before every time I do a drill. You know, it's easy to sit there as an instructor and teach students how to do things based off what you learn. But when you're in that role and you're doing things, like you take it a little bit more personal, right? Like when you mess up or something, like it just hits you different. It's not like, okay, well, I'll do this the next time. You're like, shit, I should have known that. Like, I know better than this. Like, what the hell? So it brings it into perspective that you're just like anybody else. You're imperfect. You're going to make mistakes. You don't know everything. And you know, overall, I think the biggest thing to take away from that is me personally. It brings a crew closer together. If you ever seen somebody do a search drill and just knock it out of the park, when they come out, like, man, they're like high five and they're like, "Oh, that was awesome!" And they're replaying it back in their head and everything else like that, and like they're just chitter chatting and you know, like, their emotions are like up here. So that's one part of it, but two, the challenge it gives you. Like I said, it's physically demanding. You know, usually like when I do training drills where I'm stretching line and I'm on the nozzle and stuff like that, I get to the fire thing, I flow some water and like whatever, and I get some time to like calm down, right? In a search drill, I'm constantly moving, you know, and I learn techniques for breathing that help extend my airtime on my cylinder. I learn techniques of like, I figure out like, oh, my body doesn't quite move like that, right? I have to kind of like make it move differently and use my body mechanics that I'm comfortable with to the best advantage I have. So to me, it's just like this huge learning thing that happens, and I take so much away from a search drill. So that's my favorite one, hands down.
Love it, man, and I love it because you combine humility in there with, and anytime you can put humility in there and saying, getting a chance to learn, man, I absolutely max points. Number 4. I had to pull up my notes. It's how bad is it when you've asked the questions 500 times? What mistake have you learned the most from in your fire service career? No pressure because you're doing really well.
um, I mean, that goes back to kind of like, you know, what would I tell myself in my career? Like early on, what advice would I give? The lesson I've learned the most is you got to eat that crow, man. Like when you say something or you do something, you own that shit. And you know, if you're gonna open your mouth and you're gonna say it, you better like be on it. And there's times where my approach to things I was trying to do because I was so passionate about it, and I just wanted other people to see things the same way that I did. And I'm like, why are you not so fired up? How does this not fire you up? And I just couldn't wrap my head around it that they don't process things the same way that I do, right? Maybe their like list of priorities is different or whatever it is. It took me many years because for a long time I was like, you're a firefighter. Like, you know what being a firefighter is about. Obviously, you filled out the application. You went to the damn academy. Like, you knew what this was. And then the mindset once they got there and they got off probation was very different. That bothered me. And I was pretty vocal about it. And even to this day, I've got to really like check myself because there's some things that'll strike a nerve and I'll try and be silent, but then like I'll just let it loose, like everything I'm feeling right there. And then when that happens, you're just like, oh man, I didn't want that to happen. So, you know, the biggest thing with that is just there's a time and a place. Make sure what you're saying doesn't go against everything you believe, right? And what you're preaching. Because if I'm preaching like, hey, we should be kind to each other, and I'm running around like an asshole telling everybody, you know, what I think about them, like it kind of like negates the whole process, right? And you know, like build your culture. That's the brand. Like that's what we made. So if I'm talking about build your culture and I'm just coming to work every day being a giant prick to everybody, like that doesn't go very far, you know. So that I mean that would be it for me. Is just know when to open up and who your audience is and how to approach certain topics.
Love it, brother. And again, max points. And I don't know. Yeah, I'm dropping frames, so we'll see how we wrap it up here. Final question. You've had it before because it is heavy fire and searchable space. would you rather be assigned to the nozzle or first in on VES?
Man, I'm going to say this every single time. Every time. I've had my time on the nozzle, and it's great. And I think it's a blast. And if you haven't had a chance to be on the nozzle, I hope everybody in their career gets to make a push and like experience that, because it is incredible. However, once you for me, once I got a certain amount of fires under my belt, I found a lot more enjoyment of searching without the handline, and just kind of being on my own, because you got to make things happen. You got to be very comfortable with like your skill set. So I'm going to choose, VES every time. And there's a reason. My reason for it isn't just because I like search and that's what I teach and that's what I do. My reason for it goes way back from when I was a kid. I used to go visit my dad. He was an EMT for the city of Trenton in New Jersey, and all his friends were firemen. And I remember being a kid and just like going to the firehouse, and the whole idea for me, at least in my understanding as a child growing up, was like firemen save people. Like that's what they do. Like they show up and they pull people out of buildings. Like that was just kind of like what I thought I'd be doing all the time. And I understood that like there had to be water on the fire and things like that, but watching TV shows and things like that, you always see the firemen like carrying people out, right?
Right.
So once I became an adult and graduated high school, I still had like kind of that feeling in my head, like, you know what? Like I'm gonna go do some badass shit. Like I'm gonna go and I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna like kick doors open and do stuff, and I'm pulling people out of buildings. Like that's what I want to do. And that never left. That feeling like never left me. So anytime that I was assigned to search, I was ecstatic. I was like, yes, because that's what I wanted to be a firefighter for. That particular thing right there is what drove me to want to do this. So anytime I get the chance to do that, I feel like I'm fulfilling my childhood dream, and I'm never going to let that pass me by.
There you go. That is 5 for 5. Absolutely loved it, crushed it. The max points, killing it. My brother, Sean Duffy. And with those answers, that officially makes it 168 scraps in the books. So, where can people find classes? What is coming up? Chance to have your class. Get in touch with you. Go.
Well, so I kind of I hate saying no. So when people reach out to me for stuff, I have a tendency to overbook myself. I'm all over the place. Like we talked about before the show, I leave in the morning. I'm going to Boston and then Iowa from there, doing some fast board training and things like that. So, I like to dabble in a little stuff. Mitch is my homeboy, so I kind of try and link up with him and do some forcible entry stuff too. The best way to find me, and I try my best to keep it updated, is on our website, buildyourculture.org. I'm doing it myself, so I'm sorry if it's a shitty looking site. I'm not the expert.
Not a technology guy.
Yeah, it's
that word.
There, but I got a lot of things coming up. I usually post on my personal Facebook page everything that I have going on, because it's the easiest way just to put it out there. If it's not on the Facebook page, it's on the Build Your Culture Facebook page or on the website. Easiest way to contact me, I do have a Build Your Culture email. I'll be honest, I don't check it very often because I forget. So my personal email, duffy558@gmail.com, or shoot me a Facebook message. I'll get right back to you. If it's super pressing and you need to talk to me, send me a message, ask for my phone number. I'll give it to you. We'll have a phone conversation. I don't give my phone number out over over the airs anymore, because people like to prank call you and shit. So that kind of got annoying. So stop doing that. But if you absolutely want to talk, I'm more than happy to talk. I will have a conversation with you anytime if I'm free. So if you need my number, shoot me a message. I'll give it to you. Upcoming stuff. I tell you, man, like Great Lakes Hot is one of them. That's the biggest thing I'm pushing right now. I know you're going to be there. I know Kyle was there last year, which was a great time. Steve Robertson, Todd Edwards, all those guys were there, and it it was an awesome time. Can't beat it. Anytime you have your friends in the same place, it's a great time. So that's coming up June 16th June 15th through the 17th of this year, or 2023. So there's a registration page out there. We also have a Facebook page, Great Lakes Hot. So check that out. We'll put some up there.
Looking forward to it, man. It's gonna be a good time.
Oh man, it's gonna be great. Everyone's excited you're coming. I tell everybody, I was like, Corley's coming. They're like, what? And so you're gonna be the star of the show, buddy.
I'll be standing in Duffy's shadow.
I
already did all the housekeeping. I don't got much to do. If anybody knows a sponsor, if you want to sponsor an episode of The Scrap, let me know. I'm always looking for long-term sponsors, and I'm looking for people who just want to grab one episode and hype something. So I'm always looking for that. Just like tonight with Keyhose, Affordable Drill Towers, First Line Fire Training, LLC, or Fire Mall Tools. So I want to mention them all one more time. Hey, reach out, man. Sponsor The Scrap. Get your product or business in front of a lot of firefighters through the podcast, through the YouTube, through the Facebook. Sean Duffy, thank you for being a phenomenal guest.
Oh, thanks for the invite. It's always a good conversation. We have these conversations when nobody's around, and they don't get to hear what we talk about, I don't
even think we even got to, you obviously hit a lot of the stuff we were going to talk about, but it was all driven by the audience, man. That was really, really good.
Can I just say one last thing on the survey before we sign off?
No, absolutely.
Because I wanted to touch on it, and we didn't get to say it, and this would be the last thing I say. Anybody who's using the numbers and pushing the survey, please make sure you expand on where you're getting your numbers from. I don't think any of it's intentional, but there's a reason why, the first 2,000, those data sets are, and I know some of them were released, with the next 500, and, sometime in January, as they analyze the next, what would be 3,000 or so, you'll see a different set of numbers. So if you're going numbers alone, I would encourage everybody to use what they know, which is the first 2,000. If you punch a different data set for whatever your purpose is, whatever point you're trying to make, please let people know that. There's a lot of posts on the internet that come through that can be very confusing to people. I've seen some and I've sent it over. I was like, hey, are these new numbers? Where are these numbers coming from? So if we're all on the same mission and we're trying to push the same agenda, it's important that we have the same information.
Right.
So if your numbers are not coming from those first 2,000, they're coming from a different data set, more power to you. Awesome. Love the message. Just make sure that people know that. Because I've had a lot of questions, even in classes that I do, where we put the numbers up there and someone goes, well, I saw a Facebook post that said that these were the numbers. And my first question is, which data set did they get that from? Because that's going to change. The second thing is understand the numbers, right?
Right.
Not all of them are going to equal 100, right? So when you're talking about things, we have to explain to people in a particular thing, let's say VES, whatever that number of searches that were made via window, that's where we're getting our percentage from. So if it's 500 or 600, whatever, it's a percentage of that number, not necessarily all the 2,000, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So explaining that to people is going to go a long way. Otherwise, the numbers are just information overload. Sometimes they get lost in translation and people get very confused. So use them. They're great. I love the mission that everybody's on. I love seeing search be a priority like it should be. Just in order for this thing to work and for us to kind of push this in the fire service, we all need to be on the same page. So the more information that we can share that's across the board the same, the better it's going to be for the people that we're trying to influence.
No, I love it. And my main mission almost every time is just to get more fire departments and more firefighters involved in recording their rescues, man, and just spreading the knowledge of it to increase the data set over time. Just spreading the word.
That's what it's about, right? We're better together. The more people out there pushing the same agenda, that's how we're going to reach the most. And that's really what we need to be doing. So, if you're not familiar with it, make yourself familiar with it.
That's it, man. Rate the scrap. Give it 5 stars. Rate the 9Ls. Give it 5 stars on Amazon. Get stickers. That's my bribe. Already talked about it. Awesome guest. Audience, thank you for making the scrap magical. You guys drive this machine that is I love it, man. You guys make my week each and every time. Thanks you for tuning in. Thank you for having intelligent, thought out questions. I love you all. Remember, mutts don't scrap. I hope the tones stay silent unless it's burning. Everybody, stay safe out there.